Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that we can tune into really expansive living in ways that magnetizes your life. And I'm so excited to jump into a lot of different topics like that with our guest today. And I'm excited to introduce you to her. But before we do, I want to remind you that we have the meditation collections available on the website. These meditation collections are geared to what it is that you individually are trying to attract or bring yourself towards in your life. And so I really encourage you to check them out. I'll leave the link in the show notes. And a reminder that each one of these meditations brings you into a space of heart coherence, which is something that I believe really does check you into an expansive way of living. Also, if you're new to the podcast, I want to encourage you to also check out season 1 and season 2 of the podcast. Season 3 is a lot of personal solo episodes and interviews, whereas season 1 and season 2 is really sharing more of a personal story. So it would be fun if you want to go back and check some of those things out, then there's an invitation to. Otherwise, we're just really thrilled that you're here with us today. All right, I want to introduce you to my friend, Alana. She is such a joy and a light in this life. I met Alana through some business training that we did together, and we just connected and hit it off so well. She is a songwriter. She's a kids content creator. She's a music creator, and she's a host of the podcast called Inspired Grownups. She's a co-founder of Silly Monkey Productions, and she produces music albums and the Alana Banana Show on YouTube, with the intention to inspire more joy and creativity for kids and families. So she's a really great resource if you have little ones in your home. She's been practicing yoga and meditation and mindfulness for over 2 decades, and she feels that being with kids is one of the best reminders to stay in the present moment. She's a foster/adopt mama, and she has a lot of great stories around that on her podcast. That's really fun. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband, her 4-year-old daughter, and 2 pups. I'm so excited for you to listen to this conversation. Let's jump in. Alana, my friend, I am so happy to see your face.
I am so happy to see your face.
Yes. And so here we are. It's so fun that we get to record while we see each other, even though other people are just hearing our conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're such a gift and a light. And I love your presence in my business, in my inspiration, right? You run this podcast called Inspired Grownups because you do a lot of things with kids and music and all this stuff, but you also run this Inspired Grownups. I think there's this huge part of you that has that in your heart, this desire to just give and pour into other people. And you do it so well. I love it. I can binge it and be like, yes, I have all the ideas I need now. Like just because things download, with the vibration that you're putting out. So just love it.
Thank you. Well, I I the same about you. I remember the first time I saw your picture come up and in a group that we were in. And I just had this feeling inside of me of like, I want to know you. And when I heard your podcast for the first time, I'm like, I want to be friends with this woman.
Yes.
And I love that we've cultivated this friendship and this connection. I feel like we are so on the same page with so many things, and you continue to inspire me with all of the work you do. So I'm just really happy that we get to, years later have this conversation and just continue to grow and share and be in each other's world.
Right. I love the testament that is to the magnets that we are as we go through life, like that we really do attract people that are like ourselves and the vibration that we are craving and totally flourishing in the moment of our life. And so just the fact that you could like see that from a picture or from, the interaction that we had to where we were just literally just felt like we were pulled together. And I think that goes for everybody that's listening to the podcast as well, because you are here in an environment where would be, I think we would be surprised to like line up all of the people that are listening and be like, look how similar, like as far as like how our hearts are aligned, that we might all feel. So anyway,
Yeah.
just it's fun.
Yeah, I take those little impulses and clues that I get from the universe all the time and run with it. That's
Yeah.
what I think makes life so fun and brings the
Yeah.
magic of when I saw that. I had that, intuitive little nudge of reach out to her and, it's going to take you somewhere. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just go for it. I guess, in all the years that I've lived, I've gotten to a place in my life where I feel like, why not just go for it and just see
Yeah.
where it takes me? And the insight and inspiration, like I said before, that I've continued to get from you, like even just a voice message you left last week about something re-inspired me in a new way of like, yes, I need to do that, or I want to do that. And I do feel like the physical people in our world can be like earth angels to
Mm.
show us the next step that we can take
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
inspire us to take if we choose to say yes.
Yes. Yes. Get on the train, right?
Right.
That's kind of like in similar fashion to just like what I want to talk to you about today. I especially want to start with an area of talking about your mindfulness journey because I think a lot of people, we talk about on the podcast a lot, we talk about essentially things that help us to rewrite our negative patterns, right? And the way that we can step into a different place in our life, a place that
Hmm.
feels like we're living from that inspiration, that we're tapping into that we're creating and that we're coming into a place of power and possibility. And, a lot of that has to do with our internal state. So
Yes.
we talk a lot about that. And so I want to just kind of have you share with us, what has your journey been in that arena? Is that something that, was part of your conversation or understanding when you were growing up, or where did you start to come into it? Was it intentional? Was it, just did it just come to you, and those types of things? Because I think, you know to have our eyes be super open to the fact that we can create our life instead of just letting it be thrown at us
Yeah.
is such a different way to live. And I think it's really empowering to hear other people's stories around that. So do you want to share with us just like what comes up for you when I ask you those questions?
Yes, definitely. I agree with everything you just said about people sometimes feeling like that, things are just coming at them and they don't have control. I think the first step is always awareness, right? That awareness that our choices can create different outcomes. And, we all grew up in different ways. I do feel blessed that I had a pretty happy childhood. A lot of, my dad had the biggest sense of humor. So a lot of joy. I did have, some hard times in the teenage years, as many of us
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
um, and I will say that I believe that whether we remember this or know this or feel this way, I feel that we all know deep down in our core that we are light. I
Yeah.
think we forget that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and that we have a connection to something greater than ourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
know everyone has all different beliefs around that, but for me, it was actually a turning point was when I was 18. My mom gave me the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Mm.
And that book, if you don't
Oh,
know, is all about affirmations and how our thoughts create, can change and create things in our lives, and the power of our thoughts and the power of the mind body connection. And I remember reading that book thinking, all right, not really taking it in so much. And then a few months later, drawn to it again. And I reread it, and then it hit me. For some reason, it took me
mm.
2 times to read
Mm.
the book, even
And you
though
were
I
eight.
thought I
You
was
were
18.
18. Okay.
Because I had moved out of the house, and maybe my mom just she read it, and it inspired her, and she
Mm-hmm.
just probably had that impulse, give it to Alana now that she's on her own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that book was like the catalyst of just the snowball effect of all of the other text and books that I read around spirituality and mindfulness and metaphysics, and now, all the science that is around the mind body connection, and that we live in this energetic universe and we are vibration and all of that. It's so cool that now there are books like that really are, and we've talked about that before, and I know you talk about it a lot, of the science that's behind all of this.
Yeah.
And how it can really change our life. So that was a turning point for me. I then got into yoga and meditation. And at first yoga to me was just physical exercise, because I grew up as a dancer, and I really just wanted to continue to stay flexible and to feel good. But then I realized through that practice, oh my gosh, this is something even bigger. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I really dove into the spiritual aspect of yoga, because yoga is to yoke, to merge this physical with this something greater than ourselves, right? God, source energy, creativity. And I went really deep within that. And that was when I chose to dive into children's music. So all of this being said is that through books and through yoga and meditation, also writing, I got really into journaling and just getting clear on, who I was becoming as an adult and what I wanted. And through writing, that became more clear to me. And I realized, and I still realize and feel, that it is a daily practice, because there's so much noise around us. And especially now, there's so much information, and we can see both sides, the light, the dark. And I think whatever you choose to focus on is what you're going to bring more into your experience, right? It's that like attracts like. And I just find that in the practice, because, I feel like most of us have heard this, but you learn through experience, right? So through the experience of focusing my mind, using affirmations, quieting my mind, because when I quiet my mind through meditation or just being in nature or prayer, like, I feel like I get higher insights to what is the next step? What's the next step? What's the next right step for today? And then I see results. I see results of those choices and outcomes. And it's really changed my life in such a profound way of just bringing more joy into my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because even as you were talking, like, I'm thinking about if I were to answer that question, because I didn't really think about how I would answer it before I even asked you, which is kind of an interesting thing to where we're led. But I always think it's so interesting to look at the elements of what you maybe were given when you were growing up by your parents, the gifts that you were given, right? So I feel like I definitely associate with, like, being raised knowing that I had light within me, that I had a connection to something bigger than myself, that God was leading me.
Yes.
That I could always tap into and listen to the inspiration, and that I should always be moldable in that way, that I would want to listen, that I would want to move into that space. But I never, even though that inspiration was placed in me when I was young, and that desire to listen to a higher space of being inspired, I don't feel like I truly understood how much my own thoughts, the real that I'm playing in my mind, actually creates my life. And then what's bigger that I learned further down the road is that my heart and my feelings are the biggest contributor to that reel that I'm playing in my mind that is creating my life. Right. And so that's the piece for me that I feel like I'm, like, learned in my adulthood, that I want to shout from the mountaintops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because all of these different parts of mindfulness come to us at different parts in our life.
Yes. I just got chills when you said that, because, I'm sure I'd heard that piece of it through books that I read. And I feel like, I mentioned going deeper into my spiritual practice in my early 30s. I feel like I'd heard all that, but it wasn't until my early 40s, I feel like, that I
Yeah.
really stepped into it. I think and I'm still getting body chills right
Yeah.
now, just like
Yeah.
saying this, because I think you can hear things over and over again,
Hmm.
but depending on what's going on in your life or how
Yeah.
open you are to receiving
Yeah.
all of that,
Yeah.
it's like it really sets in. So like it
Yeah.
was the same for me. And I
Yeah.
think in my early 40s and it continues throughout my 40s to just like, oh yes, it is that feeling piece. And
Yeah.
we can think thoughts, we can say affirmations, all day long. But if our feeling place in our heart doesn't really feel like we believe that at all,
Yeah.
I think the universe responds to the feeling. That's the energy, that's the attraction, the heart space, right? And the
100%.
heart space is what does connect us to our higher power
Yeah.
and everybody else, because we all
Yeah.
have it within us. So it's like the heart, when you started diving into heart coherence and the work of the heart, I was like, yes, I was all about it, because I'm like, I want to hear what you have to say about all this, because I believe it too. And
Yeah.
I want to dive in as well and go deeper with it. And it's so true. When I took your course about,
Mhm.
the heart coherence, I was like, oh my goodness. And just focusing on it every
Yeah.
day. And as
Yeah.
I continue to, and don't get me wrong, we're humans, right? We all have days that like throw us off course,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But what I've also learned about that is that sleep is like our best friend. Like when we can sleep and when we can wake up and be like, it's a brand new day.
Hmm.
We can, again, with our choices, we can choose to let yesterday like dictate how we move about our day today,
Yeah.
but we don't have to.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can actually wake up, and it's become a practice of mine too. Like before I even get out of bed, I think about very generally things I'm grateful for, things I
Mhm.
appreciate. Oh, I appreciate this really soft bed. Oh, I appreciate my covers. Oh, I appreciate my family. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. Like I'm
Mhm.
excited for this day. Even if I get a little glimpse of something that doesn't feel so good in my mind, I'm like, nope, I have the power of my mind to, because once you start thinking and feeling into the appreciative things, or like the general things, like right now I'm looking at my window, it's such a beautiful day here right now. It's the fall weather's coming in. I love it. I have my tea. Those things that are really present, simple, basic right now that I appreciate, then that momentum builds and your mind starts to find other things that you can appreciate, and then your heart feels into it, and that's where the attraction and the
Yeah.
vibration of like, let's bring more of that, more of that, more of that. And
Yep.
it's the more we practice that, it's really blown me away of like, wow, I can really feel this good. I can really
Mhm.
feel this good.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
There's really that much energy in my body,
right.
like flowing through. It's amazing.
Yes.
When you're talking, it makes me think about that quote that says, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear."
Yes.
And I don't know, is it Rumi, or I don't know
I'm not
who's
sure, but
said,
yeah, I've
but
heard
it's
it.
really great quote, because it also just makes me think, like, there's been times when I've been reading, like, I love the book The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and I remember like looking at the front of the book and going, when was this book written, because it feels like really exciting and new information to me. And I think
Mhm.
I looked at it, and if I remember, it was something like 1960. And I was
Oh yeah.
like, I was a little bit gypped, because I was like, wait, so this has like been around my whole life,
Oh yeah.
and how
Yeah.
much power we have inside of, but it's, again, it doesn't show up until the student truly is ready. I mean, I have kids in my house that I've been like dying over so many things in this arena, and like I'm trying to give it to them, and they're like, wah wah, you know what I mean? Like they aren't ready quite yet. But I
Right.
think it's interesting how just us having a conversation like this helps everyone who's listening not only check into what it is that we are talking about, but if it hasn't quite like come alive in your life like this yet, it is these are the types of conversations that help the student become ready, that are
Definitely.
so pivotal and obviously inspirational, no matter where you're at in in your state. But Yeah, I just love um, being able to bring the awareness into our life, to help us because we're human and we're going to have negative patterns that pop up for us. And a lot of
Hmm.
times, depending on the life that we have been, born into, literally, sometimes we bring on a lot of the negative patterns that were shown by
Right.
our parents, by our family. And sometimes just you can also be in a really great space with your parents and your family, but maybe what you're exposed to in the world brings a lot of negative patterns in your mind. And I think the mindfulness step is just the awakening to it doesn't have to be that way.
Definitely. And I find that throughout my life, I've just created a lot of, or I've gathered a lot of tools that when I feel myself going into a negative place, because it's natural, it's like
Yeah.
we have a negative mind too, we have positive mind, neutral. It's like when I find myself going into a negative space, I, because I've gotten really in tune with my feelings, and I feel like I, I have really grown to have reverence for my feelings in all aspects. Like if I
Mhm.
need to cry, I let myself cry because that's just energy that needs to be released from my body. And I don't look at it as like a bad thing necessarily. And I find that my feelings are like my guideposts in a sense of, okay, what do you need right now? What do you
Mhm.
need um, to just move through your day? Or what are you learning from this? And so these tools that I've gathered, when I feel myself being triggered by like something really negative, you know, the things that I go to are, especially if it's around like my young child who, all young kids with big feelings can trigger feelings within you.
Yeah.
So if I can, if my husband's home, I'm like, I need a few minutes.
Yeah.
And I just remove myself
Mhm.
before I respond in a way that I might regret.
Yeah.
So I remove myself. I might listen to something, even if it's 3 minutes, breathing, of course, taking myself back to like breath. Um, I have lots of books all around that I could just flip to a page and remember, read something that's uplifting, going outside, putting my feet in the ground, taking off my shoes in the grass, listening to a song, music, of course, anything, music that's going to take me out, a bath, all these little tools that I have. That I just use. And I find it helps me kind of pull back the spiraling of what, a road that is going to maybe take me down for the rest of the day.
Yeah, 100%, which is so pivotal to help us to understand that, like, what state we are currently in is then predicting what will be coming out of us. So I love the intention between, I recently said on my podcast, we were talking about a story about a guy who is bumped into and he spills the coffee in his cup. Well, the only reason that he spilled the coffee in his cup is because there was coffee in his cup. If it was tea in his cup, tea would have spilled. If it
Right.
was something else in the cup, that would have spilled. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
whatever is inside of us is what kind of spills out when push comes to shove, And so it's really great to begin to see the rewriting of that, but more than that is the creating of our life and being in a state where we are in that. And I know that you are a person who really tries to be led. I know that you're
Yeah.
really led in what you do with your personal life. I know you're really led in the way that you live your business life, what messages that you need to be sharing, and how much that just pours into the music and the things that you share. Which I do want to say one thing really quickly, because if you are a young mother and you have not discovered the power of music for children, A, this is a huge train. Like, get on the train. Because I love your music, and obviously your music wasn't around when my kids were little, and I totally raised my kids on Raffi and a little bit of
Yeah.
Charlotte Diamond. And
Oh, I
I
love her.
Charlotte Diamond, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so great. And I just like the connection that you have over those songs and the light and the happiness that it brings in and the repetition and the things that they're learning. Like, we learn so much through music. And you know
Hmm.
what else is really cool? Do you know who Karen Drucker is?
I do. I do.
She
Through
is
our friend Rachel Blair, I learned about.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, same. So it's funny because I always say to people, Karen Drucker's like Raffi for adults
Yes.
because of the messages that she builds into the music, you know? And I remember the other day I was kind of looking through Instagram and I came across a song that I think you duetted on. I'm not sure.
Oh,
The affirmation one.
oh, yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. And it's like a little kid tune and I'm sitting there playing it for myself. I like me, I love me, you know what, all these different things. And it's
Yeah.
just so empowering.
Well,
It's empowering.
that video went totally viral, which completely surprised me. Oh, that was another like you talk about being led
Mhm.
with, especially in the last year and a half. I wake up, I meditate, even if it's for, 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
try to go 15 or longer, 15, 20 minutes. But sometimes it's just laying in my bed,
Yeah.
And sometimes I do sit up and really,
Put it with more
meditate.
intention. Yeah.
Right. But I just I just ask, show me what you want me to do today,
Mhm.
to God, to my higher self, spirit. What is it you want me to do? I came across that video she's British, the woman who wrote this affirmation song. And I have to say her name is slipping my mind right now, but if you go to my Instagram, you'll see it. I pinned the post, and um I'm like, this is everything. I love
Yeah.
it. She had her child in the video, and I thought, I want to sing. I love singing harmonies, so I'm having so much fun with these remixes.
Yeah.
And I happened to get up really early before my daughter, and after meditation, it was like, remix a song today. I had done nothing with my hair. I was like, okay. I put the headphones in, like just rehearsing the harmony a few times. My daughter woke up, who I rarely have her in any of my videos, and she came over. She gave me a hug.
Oh,
I was singing the song. I just hit record and I held my phone up.
oh.
I recorded it in that moment,
Mhm.
and it took me no time. I posted it and it has like 5 million views. It's one of those things that I didn't try
Yeah.
hard for.
Yeah.
I
And
just
it just
listened,
mhm.
and it was something that spoke to me, and I felt like it spoke to me. I want to help share this message with other people. And there you go. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Two lessons in this. I mean, probably a myriad of lessons, but the idea that if we just listen, and it doesn't matter if you are um, a person doing kids music like Alana,
right.
you know, or if you're whatever it is that you're doing in your life, just listening and following, just listening and following instead of the thing where we tend to make it difficult, you know, like we
Yeah. And
get
try
so
to,
complicated in it.
right. And try to figure out where it's going, or what are we
Yeah.
going to get out of it. And I
Yeah.
just really learned, the more I let that go, the more I enjoy my life, really, because I'm not worrying about what other people are going to think about it. And that's been a process, right? Of like,
Yeah.
I was a people pleaser for so long. And I feel like the last, I don't know. I really love being in my 40s. I think that
Yeah.
I've
You
always
let go
had,
of a lot.
yeah, I've always had the belief that the older I get, the better I get,
Yeah.
or the better it gets, because what
Yeah.
else are you going to think? I mean,
Yeah.
where like aging
Yeah.
is inevitable, you might
Yeah.
as well embrace it. And because I have, and because that has been my feeling around it, it has gotten better. And
Yeah.
the older I get, the more I learn to just be like, whatever, this is who I am. And nowadays, because we all can just produce things and put things out and share in whatever way we want to, it's pretty cool. But, if we can get out of our own way of worrying about other people and just following what lights us up inside and just go for it, because the truth is nobody's thinking about us as much as we are. I
Mhm.
think that everyone
100%.
has their own thing going on. So I could
Yeah.
post a video or share something and think, oh my gosh, what are people thinking about it? But everyone's just
Yeah.
like scrolling along. They're not thinking that much about it.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's,
Well, I think another thing from that little real experience in the mix that you did is to look at the message that actually was in it. Because
yes.
I mean, I don't know if you remember the words right now, but I know it's something
Oh
like
yeah. It's
I like
like,
me.
yeah, it's I am brave. I'm getting over a head cold, so I'm going to see how it goes. I'm like, I am brave. I am loved. I am enough. I have strength in my voice and I am tough. I am beautiful. And then she goes up high, creative, and I know just who I am. I am special because I am me,
Mm,
and there is no one I would rather be.
mm.
So,
Now,
so simple and
now,
beautiful.
now we just take it apart and we say, the very fact that you have this idea that the older you get, the better it gets. You're creating
Hmm.
your life in that. Now just look at the little melody you sing to us. Like, I am me, I am beautiful, I am strong. All of these incredible messages that download in a simple song. That's incredible power. And it's a tune that can stay with you. It's beautiful. It's a good conversation. I love that.
Thank you. I love it too. And okay, so the affirmation song was written by Namwilla. I
Not
think I'm
Willa.
pronouncing
Okay.
it Namwilla. Yeah, she's from the UK, and
Yeah.
I think she's probably in her early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
just, a young mom, and is I've been following her now since I found that song, and going
Yeah.
through her own journey of being present and showing us life, whether it's messy or all of the
Yeah.
things. And but that her song really impacted me and so
Yeah.
many others.
Yeah. Yeah. The messages that we surround ourselves really do help us create
Yeah.
our life. I was scrolling through your, last podcast from the past year and just kind of like, what's Alana been up to and different
Hmm.
things. I heard on your podcast an episode that you entitled Celebrating Life. And it just struck such a like tender and beautiful chord for me. And here's why. Because when I was in college, I got a phone call from my dad. And a lot of times my dad, when he called me on the phone, there was no like, hey, how are you? Whatever. It was, what's up, Gus? How you doing? It was like, he was immediately go and we were in immediate celebration mode. He was immediately like just so excited and happy to talk to me all the time. But this time he said, what's up, Guff? And he called me Guff because it was a nickname spinoff from girlfriend because we went on a trip to San Francisco. It was a work trip for him. And we were dancing on the floor like crazy. And everybody asked him, is that your girlfriend? And he's
Oh
like,
my
oh
gosh.
my gosh. So he always called me girlfriend after that. It was so funny. So, but as far as him, when he called me, he said, what's up, Guff? And then he said, I figured it out. And I'm like, okay, dad, like, what did you figure out? And he's like, I figured it all out. He goes, I know what life is all about, everything. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, three things. He goes, balance, memories, and celebrating life.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of become this mantra for our family because, he's like, I think we can wrap everything into those three things, you know? And I loved the way that you talked about celebrating life on your podcast. Can you speak to us just a little bit about what that really means to you? Like, what is the meaning that you're really attributing to celebrating life?
I I feel like being here, living this life, it's really such a gift.
Mm-hmm,
And I also believe that we are here to really enjoy our lives. I don't think that life needs to be a struggle.
mm-hmm,
And I think that having fun, and again, as I get older, I step into this even more fully, but having fun and finding and doing those things that really do bring you joy, the little things, the big things, is what life is all about.
right.
And so when I think about celebrating life, like, okay, and now I remember that episode because it was around May 1st, my best friend's birthday, who lives in Prescott, Arizona. I live in Los Angeles. The day before, we usually try to, celebrate our birthdays together. We don't always celebrate our birthdays together, but it's fun too. And I I thought, I'm just going to drive out there. I do love taking, solo road trips. I think any parent who has a young child, I don't love being away from my daughter, but it was one night. And
Yeah.
I sometimes even just driving for 20 minutes in my car, it's like a little vacation.
Yeah. Restorative, right?
Restorative,
Mm-hmm,
right? Because I can listen to my own music,
mm-hmm.
I can listen to an audiobook or a podcast, something, and it just feels really freeing to me.
Yeah.
So everything lined up for me to just be gone for 2 days, one night.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, yes, this is what life's about, especially last minute spontaneity.
Yeah.
And it was also the anniversary of my father's passing.
Mm.
And I feel extremely close to my father. I know we share this as well, even though he's on the other side. I just continue to feel his love and presence. And I say sometimes he's like my business partner on the other side, just like, giving me insight, or I just feel the love, not just him, my other ancestors as well. But I wanted to celebrate, instead of being, of course, I, felt a little sadness, grief does come up at times, and that's just a part of our lives. But I wanted it to be a celebratory day,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that day of his passing. So
yeah,
I took the trip. But so for me, celebrating life, again, it's that belief and reminder that every day we can start with a clean slate.
yeah.
We can wake up and say, what do I want to do today that's going to
Mm-hmm.
bring me some joy? I do feel like I have created a life for myself. Again, I think it was years in the making, but I did it, created a life for myself where I get to do what I love for my work.
Mm-hmm.
I get to make silly, children's music.
Yeah.
And
Silly and intentional. That's right.
yeah, because I love being silly. I love the
Yeah.
lightness, and
Yeah.
that's why I love working with kids.
Yeah.
And being a mom, what I always wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
and celebrating my connection to her. And I just really consciously and intentionally find moments throughout my day to remember, what can I celebrate today? Even just being at the park yesterday, I was, recovering from a head cold, but I felt good enough to go out, and we went to this park, and I just thought, wow, the sky, again, I bring it back to things that are so general, but and in the present moment, that can remind me of beauty in the world. Like, look how beautiful these trees are. Look at how green this grass.
Yeah. Simple, profound things we take advantage of. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, things that pass us by all the time. If we're sitting in traffic, I try to look and see what kind of flowers I can see outside my window, or little things. I always go towards nature because nature is just the best, right?
Yeah.
And has, I think, a really high vibration, and it can bring us back. So again, it just comes back to those little intentional moments. Every time I step into something new, I'm like, okay, this is a new moment. So what can I do that I can celebrate? And things that are beautiful, flowers, good food, things like that, tea, all the things that I love.
Yeah, I know that a huge theme for you a lot of time when you're getting your downloads in, in meditation, the inspiration and the things that come to you is like, what could I do that would be fun?
Yeah.
And I think that that's synonymous with celebrating life.
Definitely.
When my little girl passed away, my dad definitely taught us to celebrate her life, to be able to sit in a space where we are truly looking to all the things that we loved about life with her, about the way that she has changed our hearts forever, these types of things.
Yeah.
And I really feel like to celebrate a life after someone is gone, it's also the way that we celebrate while we're all here and while we're all here together.
Right.
And so I think celebrating life really like encapsulates that. But I think it's interesting that you brought up how you and I have this connection with our dads. And I love the way that you said you think of your dad as your business partner, because we can do a whole other podcast about the way that I feel like I have been specifically led by my father in, my friend Misha. But I did want to ask you, whatever you feel comfortable sharing in the arena of the ways that you have experienced your dad since he has passed. And, where have you seen him show up? And what are the types of ways that you can still feel connected to him, even though he's not like in your physical space right now? In whatever it is that you feel comfortable sharing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I get emotional because I miss him, but I feel so grateful because I am still able to feel him. I think initially after the grief of his passing a few years ago, the first few weeks, I would sit in meditation, and I might have mentioned this to you because I have had you on my show before. We've talked about our dads, but I remember it was like hearing a voice, but it wasn't my own. In a meditation, I felt so strongly that it was him sharing, "It's better than you could ever imagine."
Mm.
Those words were so clear because before he passed, my dad, just a little context, he was always so healthy and like, never even on medication. And then all of a sudden it was like you hear these stories like the stage 4 lung cancer that spread. And so it was 2 months and he passed. So it was a quick thing.
Yeah.
And he was living in Texas and I'm in California. And so a few times I took some solo trips out before he passed. And one time we had a conversation about, what we had talked about what we believe happens after we pass on. But I just asked him, I said, "This is a really strange question, but are you kind of excited to see what's going to happen?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, of course I'm going to miss your mother. My parents had been married for 58 years
Mm-hmm.
and us, but it was that like, ooh, I know this is going to happen. We all do at some point in our lives, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "You better send me some signs."
Yeah.
And he said he would. So we'd had that conversation, and then I heard very clearly in this meditation once, "It's better than you could ever imagine." And I also would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night. And I think those times when we wake up,
Mm-hmm.
say to go to the restroom or whatever, like our minds are so clear from being asleep that I feel like we can receive things from spirit and source and
Mm-hmm.
God. And like, that's why some, writers might say, "I woke up with a song in my head."
Yeah.
Because they weren't in resistance to
Yeah.
like receiving the
Yeah.
inspiration. So I woke up and I just heard, "Love is your only job. Your only job is to love."
Mm.
And, we've heard things like that before, but it just really hit me so strongly. Like, oh, what if it was that simple?
Yeah.
And it can be. And how do I love? I can love through every conversation I have. I can share love through every email I write. I can send love to, my child, my husband, if they're a friend who might be having a hard time, instead of, we all here have compassion and let go of judgment and all of these things. But when we really can step into that, can I just see this person through the eyes of love, even if we don't agree on something?
Mm-hmm.
So that was very clear. And then I've also just felt, through humming, I have a hummingbird feeder. I love hummingbirds and butterflies. And I one time just got this download, like, you'll see me through all of the things that fly, really, the birds, the butterflies. And every single time, I've had a butterfly just like roaming around, just constantly not leaving me, that's when you feel those things.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to drive like a Ford, white Ford pickup truck. Soon after he passed, that's all I kept seeing, white Ford pickup trucks. That day from that Celebrate Your Life, I think I mentioned it on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm driving home from Prescott and I'm going down this really windy hillside and I'm following a white Ford pickup truck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I think that anytime you think that you're receiving a message from a loved one that has passed,
Yeah.
you definitely are. Or you wouldn't even have the thought that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I feel like for me, I see a lot of feathers.
Yeah.
And feathers, you'll see feathers in your life, especially if you're like out in nature or something at a park with ducks or something like that. And so I'm careful to not be like, over the top about it in any way. But if I see a feather, especially in an unusual place, or if it comes with a feeling like that, there's like there have been times when, I remember before I did the first Kathy Heller course I ever did, and that's where you and I met, just for the audience to know. I remember sitting down, and I was a little bit early before the class started, and I was like, ooh, I forgot to say my prayer today. So I immediately just got down on my knees and said a prayer. And then I looked to the side by my knee, and there was a feather. And I
Love
felt this overwhelming thing, like this, what you're doing today is the right next step. This is the thing. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. And I have felt and had experiences like that so often, things that are tiny and things that are huge. I've had
Yeah.
everything in between. And do you know those little bottle caps? They're not bottle caps. Okay. You know when you open up a soda can, and back in the day, what used to pop off the soda can was the little lever that you used to pop it open, and also the tongue
Yes,
of,
yes. I know what you're
okay,
talking about.
okay, those things, it used to be attached and it would come off of the soda can.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me, Alana, like, do you see those everywhere you go?
No.
No. Guess what?
You do.
I do. I do. I took my youngest and a bunch of his friends camping this week, or this last summer. And often I also get like little confirmations from my dad that like I'm doing the right thing in parenting, which is like, oh, it's
Yeah.
so tender, so tender.
Yeah.
But we were at the lake fishing on this camping trip, and I walked into the trees to go use the restroom, and I looked down. There is this, signal from my dad. This, I don't even know what you want to call that, the top to a soda can. And I just pick it up, and I'm like, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
And like, I feel this rush of, this is exactly where you are supposed to be. And I'm just like, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
And
feel
it
that
just,
too.
yeah, it's incredible. They really are closer than we think.
I agree. Another one that's popping into my mind right now is taking my dogs for a walk, and I saw this beautiful bluebird, like one that I don't normally see it ever in my neighborhood unless I'm camping or something. This
Yeah.
beautiful bluebird across the street, and I thought, wow. And my dad loved birds. Like they had bird
Okay.
feeders and like, so that's why I think I get the whole bird
Yeah.
butterfly thing. And this blue bird was across the street, and immediately I thought of my dad, and I thought, oh my gosh, my dad would love that bird. Next thing I know, it's across the street next to me, hovering, like just flying. It was probably like 10 feet away, but it was just hovering like in like around my where my eyesight was. And I could not think that that was my dad. And I just immediately heard, call your mom, tell her about this.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
my mom sometimes, I think she's still in the grief, of course,
Yeah.
and she struggles sometimes to always feel him around as much as
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has had moments like if she's in church or when the vibration is high and she really
Yeah.
feels that. But um so I did, and she said, "Oh, thank you so much for telling me that."
Oh my gosh.
But I
Oh
just was
my
like,
gosh.
I could not like I never see that bird, and it's just hovering in
Mhm.
front of me. Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up, I think it's great to have the conversation of things that happen for us and to us with our dads, even in the face of, sometimes when people don't experience those things, because I
Yeah.
think it also opens up the possibility. And then you start to look for it, you start to see it differently. I think there's a lot to ponder inside of the state that we're in for
Yeah.
the allowing and the receiving for something like that to come through. But yours also reminded me of another story of my dad. I swear, we could probably do an entire podcast just on this. It's so fun. But my family, so it was really just my sister, my mom, and my three kids, and I. We went to Yosemite, and my dad, he achieved the rank of Bobcat in the scouting program, which is, I guess, like, one of the big thing, whatever.
Uh-huh.
So and occasionally members of our family have had interactions with bobcats as well. Okay. I've had a couple on my own that they
Wow.
scare the dickens out of me. But when we were in
Yeah.
Yosemite, our family, was walking on this sidewalk from the point of wherever we were going to the visitor center. So that tells you that we weren't on a trail. We were kind of in the busyness of the park. And there was a bobcat, if I am not kidding you, that came up in the street by next to the sidewalk where we were walking, and it walked like in line with us all the way up to the visitor center.
Oh my gosh.
A
That's
bobcat.
crazy. Yeah.
People would be freaking out. And
Right.
we're like, that's Dad, I guess. You know what I mean? Anyway, and then the thing is that it just comes with a feeling. So
Yeah. I think trusting the feeling is the most important part. Again, that's coming back to your heart space, your emotions, and not, your mind can tell you all different stories, but deep down, you can trust in your heart space. Like you talk about with the heart coherence, like the heart has like its own brain, right? I don't know the scientific research around that, but I do feel that that is true. It's like, or the heart tells our brain first, right? You could probably speak on this more clearly, but you know what I'm talking about.
The heart has more neural pathways than our brain does. And so, yes, our heart is like another brain, but because of the way that our heart feelings are trained, our heart is what fires first and sends those feelings to our brain, which then trigger all of the thoughts and the patterns of our life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It is incredible.
It's incredible. And I love the way that we're wrapping all of this up. We're wrapping all of it up with the idea that like really expansive living, no matter what it is, if it's connecting with a loved one, if it's being guided and led through your life, if it's being in a state where we have thoughts that are so powerful that it overrides like the negativity that might be coming with something like aging or something like that, right? We can override things that we want to create differently in our life. And I think that ultimately that's the essence of like what we kind of like arrived at with the ending of the podcast. It's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. I just think also it is a practice, it's like if you feel like you're stuck in a negative space, I think just knowing that if you can slowly or quickly really bring things into your awareness that just make you feel good.
Yeah.
Because of like the law of gravity, that law of attraction, that like attracts like, it's going to bring more of that to you. And if you just continue to move in that direction, you're going to see results.
Yeah. Be bigger than the thing in front of you that's got you down. So take a page from Alana and listen to her saying, what would be fun today? And if what's on your docket today doesn't feel very fun, then figure out a way to make it fun, just like you're listening right now to the podcast. And we're talking about really expansive and incredible things. Like that's fun, but recognize it, right? Or recognize the way that you're going to say hello to the person that you interact with when you arrive at work, or whatever it is that you can bring in the small things first. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's the big things. And then it's your whole life.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
You're awesome. Thank you so much, Alana, for
you.
being with us today. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Your vibration, your love, your heart, all of it. I love it so much.
Oh, I love you. And thank you for having me. I could talk to you forever. And I just love sharing space with you. So thank you for inviting me on.
100%. We'll do it again.
Yes.
Sending you love.
You too.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode and spending time with Alana. She really is so fantastic. I'll leave links in the show notes to places where you can find Alana if you're interested in her music for your little ones. That's a really fun space that she exists in, and I encourage you to check it out. You can go to her YouTube or her Instagram, and you can also go to her podcast, which is made for grown-ups, and it's called Inspired Grown-ups. So I'll go ahead and put all of that information in the show notes for you to be able to find to reach out and connect with her. And again, Alana, thank you so much for coming on the show. And a little reminder to make sure that you subscribe to the Mindset Check podcast so that you can stay in the loop and get the episodes when there's a new one out. Christmas shopping is right around the corner, and I wanted just to remind you that to support the Mindset Check podcast, you can go use our affiliate Amazon link, which is amazon.com/shop/ my friend Misha. And that just gives a kickback to the show and as a thank you for sending you to Amazon. And it doesn't cost you any more for the things that you're purchasing. So it's a great mindful way for you to be able to give back. Before we leave, I want to leave you with a quote that is a nod to the conversation that we were having with Alana at the end about our loved ones that have passed. This quote is by Maya Angelou, and she says, "A great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us together again and again." I feel that in so many ways, and I'm hoping that you feel your loved ones surrounding you as well. Until next time, my friend.